to recap once again, U.S. forces marched right into the heart of downtown Baghdad this morning and took this palace that we have been led to believe, according to some spokesmen being quoted on the wires, that there may be other targets in the area. And of course, you're seeing it only on Fox because right in the middle of this whole mess was Greg Kelly. Let's listen to Sky News now and see what they're saying about the situation in downtown Baghdad.
And then we saw the A-10s, the tank busters, low growling machines circling very low above us like hornets. And we knew that that meant that there must be something coming towards us, an armored column it turned out to be. And lo and behold, after a lot of noise and a lot of smoke, and the Iraqi setting off a huge reservoir of oil, we saw the first armored columns, the tanks, American tanks, appearing at the presidential complex just a few hundred yards away from where we are on the western bank of the Tigris. There have been a lot of firing, a lot of explosions, but a very bold, a very fast move by the American troops to show they were in control and could reach into the very heart of the city of Baghdad. They've got right up to the bank of the Tigris River, but on this side, still very much the case that the Iraqi government is in control. Nothing has changed. Only a few hundred yards away, there are American tanks, but on this side, the city is still under the control of President Saddam Hussein. We do expect there are other movements afoot. We expect an attack from any point of the compass at the moment. We don't know what's happening. There's smoke everywhere. There's the sound of gunfire everywhere. There's always a danger, I'd have thought, for the American columns in the position where they are, that they could come under a sustained counterattack. But it must be very difficult for the Iraqi defenders because they're so isolated now. They don't have any effective structure, no real command and control. Anything they do will not be a coordinated attack on the Americans because they've been sliced into small pockets by the rapid advance of the armor. Therefore, I suspect the Americans might be here to stay. They suspect a sustained, coordinated counterattack can no longer be launched by the defenders on the west bank. But here on the eastern bank of the Tigris, of course, the infrastructure is still intact. And that must be a worry for the coalition forces. But there is a column of Marines, as far as I understand it, who fought though up from Al-Qut and could be coming up the road behind me at any moment. There's no sign of any coalition strike jets above me at the moment. They're being used in close support of ground troops. They're no longer being used here because the American armor and infantry have taken up position along the bank, and they've got enough armor and artillery available to hold off any sustained counterattack on their own. But the jets could well have moved to the southeast of the city to enhance the rapid movement of any Marine column coming up that road behind me. So also I've heard there's another attack being launched in the northwest of the city, again on the western side of the Tigris. So that means that anything could happen in the next few moments, the next hours. Nobody can tell where this battle is going to go, how long it's going to last. If this is indeed the final battle for Baghdad, we don't know. We don't know how much longer the infantry and armored columns just a few hundred yards away from where I'm standing will actually stay there. And so for the civilians and for the journalists here, it's an extraordinary moment. Is the regime about to lose hold on this bank of the Tigris or not? How much longer will the Americans stay? Will their mere presence mean, essentially, that the power here on the east of the Tigris starts to dissolve and starts to crumble? The moment it doesn't.
Let me jump in here because once again we've reestablished contact with our Greg Kelly, the embedded correspondent who has been bringing us these pictures from downtown Baghdad. Let's go to Greg Kelly now. I'm told he's on the parade grounds. Greg, what can you tell us?
Hey, yes, we're at those parade grounds. You've seen these before. See those kind of garish, the VIP. Recognize those arches, these giant.
Well, we are having some difficulty with Greg's signal.
Right now, there's not one many Iraqi.
Go ahead, Greg. It's hit or miss.
Do it again. Wrist down. All right, good. Hey, here we go. Right now, no Iraqi vehicles, just American and coalition forces. We got an M1 tank now.
We are trying to establish our signal with Greg Kelly, who is on the parade grounds. He has been having one heck of a good morning so far. bringing us live pictures from downtown Baghdad, exclusive pictures seen only on Fox News, while we try to reestablish that signal with Greg Kelly, and we apologize for that. This is a live picture now of Iraq's information minister. How are we seeing these pictures? This is downtown Baghdad now. The Iraq's information minister, it looks like he's going to make a statement. If he does, we'll listen in. This information ministry is not far, not very far at all, from where U.S. troops have taken over a presidential palace. And so they are very anxious to make the case. I am certain that the Iraqi regime has not fallen, that they are still in control of some portions of the city. The Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Military Industrialization, the Council of Ministries. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. This is a picture of Saddam Hussein's statue, of Saddam Hussein on a horse. We have been led to believe that U.S. forces may be about to blow up this statue. We're going to take this full screen and watch it for a while. Amazing. We are listening to pictures from downtown Baghdad, looking at pictures, listening to sound from downtown Baghdad. That statue is not far from where our Greg Kelly is. It is a picture, it is a statue of Saddam Hussein on a horse. And we have been given some guidance that perhaps in the next few minutes, well, it looks like it just got blown up, ladies and gentlemen. That was it. Oh my gosh. Apparently U.S. forces have taken some kind of gun and blown that statue to absolute smithereens. I believe those pictures were, yes, let's go back to the Iraqi information minister. Quite a scene in downtown Baghdad at this hour. U.S. forces in control of the presidential palace. The Iraqis still in control of the Ministry of Information, the Foreign Ministry. Let's go listen in to what the Minister of Information is saying.
We have slaughtered about 3/4 of them so far, and there is some remnants of them left. And what is happening now, and chasing them in the area of Sofia, in Yusufia, the Yusufia district. The picture, as they have stated, and since they are sick in their minds, they are really sick, they said that they have entered Baghdad with 65 tanks into the center of the city. And I'm telling you, this is not true.
I tell you, I inform you that this speech is far from the reality.
This is part of their sick head.
Part of their sickness of their friends.
There is no presence of the American columns in the city of Baghdad at all. They tried to come from the area of El Dora and to pass about 2 columns of some tanks. They were surrounded.
They were surrounded there.
And they were dealt with.
Most of them were treated by our forces.
And their columns were slaughtered. And this is this is to be meant verbatim. This is to be meant verbatim. We have fed them a sour taste yesterday, poison, and by the brave forces of Saddam Hussein. And in this meeting, I will not mention the total number of deaths and the total number of the tanks destroyed. The operations are still ongoing, and I can tell you, and you can record it on me that I have said that. They are beginning to commit suicide at the forces at the walls of Baghdad, and I will encourage them to increase the rate of committing suicide. We fed them yesterday hell and death.
The bitterness last night.
And onward, I'll keep on giving you information as soon as possible.
For you more information later on.
Those mercenaries, I swear by God, I swear by God,
I swear by God another time.
the ones that are staying in Washington and London,
Staying in Washington,
they have thrown their soldiers into the fire.
They threw them in this fire.
And as per the statement of Mr. Saddam Hussein, that God will burn their bellies in hell on the hands of the Iraqis. This is an Arabic statement
An Arabic expression.
because the killing that they have seen yesterday
They witnessed it yesterday.
will give a lesson to those mercenaries
For those mercenaries,
and those war criminals that are residing in London and Washington, that their columns are being killed in the hundreds on the walls of Baghdad.
started to suicide on the field of
The battle was fierce,
The battle was so violent.
and God has victored his soldiers. God has victored.
Victorized,
The Iraqis came out victorious,
as I mentioned, the battle
and the battle is still ongoing in the main fronts. You were bothered by the bombarded, by the bombs, but you are our guests and our friends. But we were dealing with those columns,
there was a great
and
mercenaries.
so I reassure you, settle down. Baghdad is safe, solid, and
Secured and trained
the Iraqis, the Baghdadians that live in Iraq are heroes. They told you they took Hotel Rashid, and they said that they took the Ministry of Information compound. Well, and I heard one of the reporters confirm that, but regrettably, that's not true. I'm here sitting at the Ministry of Information, and I went to the Rashid Hotel. I commend the soldiers, and I commend the Ba'athist people, and I commend the people coming down from their houses, the civilian coming down from their houses with their machine guns. So please, I beg you,
I request you
the American depend on this,
on a method or a manner.
which I named yesterday as a miserable sty. You just verify what you're hearing. Do not repeat what they're saying. Just verify first before you stay, so that you don't become like them.
Unfortunately, otherwise,
And I blame Al Jazeera channel because it repeats its marketing to the Americans before it verifies the news, the authenticity of the news.
please don't play such role.
Find the truth first.
Search for the truth.
I tell you, and everything I say, I ask you to verify what I'm saying. I told you yesterday that there has been an attack and retreats during at the Saddam airport, and what did the Americans say?
The disappointed Americans.
They brought their soldiers. They said that their soldiers have occupied the airport,
Since their attack started,
and they photographed them into the reception hall in the airport, just to say that this place was used by the President Saddam Hussein.
this was used by the president.
This shows you
That show to you
how simple-minded they are trying to. They change the subject that this great man Saddam Hussein was using this airport or not, if he has been using that bed in the airport or not.
this bed or no.
They only deserve to be despised.
حرب دائرة يعتدون على بلد وعلى شعب
Continuous war, they make aggression against people.
وتورطوا مع شعب شجاع ومقاتل ونظام سياسي وطني
They have invaded a country. They are dealing with a legitimate regime.
ويخدعوني يصورون احنا ننخدع راحوا على قاعة الشرف الكبرى.
They went to the honorary.
الانتباه من علوجهم المذبوحة على الأرض.
So that they went to the honorary rooms in the airport so that they can cover up for the bodies of the soldiers killed in the.
So how do you see how cheap they are?
So this can show you how cheap they are. Instead of they take care of the misery of their soldiers, they show on TV a reception hall. Is the dignity of people is it represented by reception halls? Well, those are the ones that people are respecting. They don't deserve any respect. And yesterday we have slaughtered them. And then I tell you, I repeat, please, we have discomforted you yesterday a little bit because we have been firing at the artillery at the small column, so we bothered you a little. So I'm ready to take your questions. This is Monte Carlo. What I say is that the true diplomacy, true policy, is the right arm for the Iraqi army, Iraqi people. This policy and diplomacy will to do is to.
لن تستحق إلا أن تكون مكان للدعارة إذا بقيت تحت أقدام الأمريكان.
Kofi Annan needs to condemn the aggression because otherwise the United Nations will become to be a place of prostitution.
Going on less than half a mile away. Heavy machine gun fire, mortars and artillery in the distance.
هناك معركة تجري على بضعة كيلومترات من هنا، ولقد قال بعض الصحفيين أن العديد من الأمريكيين منتشرون بدباباتهم في هذه في ساحة المعركة.
You have been listening to Iraq's information minister as he tries to make the case, which is immediately disproved by the pictures you see on the right side of your screen, that U.S. forces, coalition forces, are indeed not taking over Baghdad. On the right-hand side of your screen, you are looking at pictures that are coming to you live exclusively on Fox News from our embedded correspondent, Greg Kelly, who is there on the scene with microphone in hand. Greg, can you hear me?
I can, Brian. Guess where we are? The National Parade Grounds of Iraq. This is where Saddam Hussein comes to see those elaborate military parades. Situation very much under control. We only see American military vehicles here this time. You know, the Iraqi information minister doesn't seem to think that you guys are winning and that you guys are really here. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, he's just across the street from us. We'll go over and talk to him.
Are you planning on paying him a visit?
Yeah, sure. Literally, we're parked right outside of the Ministry of Information's headquarters. We've got the Rashid Hotel surrounded out there. They can look out their window. They can see us. We're sitting right outside of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers. Here is the grand what do we call this place? The reviewing stands. We're in front of the zoo. We've got I don't know. Look out the windows. You can tell we're in downtown Baghdad.
And we also have some souvenirs here right now. I don't know if we're allowed to take them or not, but the Saddam Hussein statue that hangs kind of overlooking this area was destroyed just a couple of minutes ago by, I think, one of your tanks?
No, by one of Rick's tanks. Before mine.
Rick, what was that? Whoa. That was one of us. That's us. All right, that's us. So that's stuff a lot. They're still securing the reviewing stand, and I think we're safe with our helmets on and our flak jackets.
All right, he's already caught him a couple prisoners, so we're good to go.
All right. How much of today is symbolic, and how much of it is real tactical control that we're gaining for either one of you, Flip or Rick?
So today is symbolic in the sense that we already had it. So the victory was won a long time ago. Now today we're just securing, and it's a symbol of the victory. The victory was secured. There was no doubt about it. About 5 days ago, his regime was done. He was just continuing his propaganda. Today, we just ended his propaganda campaign because he can continue to put his lies on TV, but we're showing the American public where we are.
We are here. We are at the palace. We've got another palace that is secure right now. There are 2 palaces that are surrounded by 2nd Brigade.
We've got 2 palaces that are surrounded. Rick's guys have the park. They have this area, and he's got the hotel, and he's got the Ministry of Information.
But I got a real problem with that because Flip's guys are taking showers and my guys aren't. Just give me a little time.
I'll let his guys come down.
We were actually inside the palace. We checked it out. There's a lot of debris, but there's also a lot of nice gold fixtures in the bathroom and a lot of marble on the floor and ornate chandeliers. And we're probably going to be hanging out for a while, right?
I think we're here to stay.
We'll be here for a while. Interim government's coming in, and we'll secure them.
All right. Great work, guys, and thanks for getting us here safely.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, Brian, we've got some more things to show you. We might be moving out here shortly. And some more things to listen to as well.
Greg, what's going on in the background right now? What's all the firing and the commotion that we hear?
We good?
It's actually our artillery that's going out right now, hitting a...
Those are tanks. Those are my tanks that are shooting right now.
Who are they actually engaging? We can't see from here.
You can't see just because of the dust and the haze, but there are a lot of bad guys that are still out there. We were parked right outside of an artillery battalion. We're engaging them. We're getting a lot of secondary explosions. Tanks are engaging BMPs, trucks, things we call technical. Guys driving around in trucks with machine guns. There's still a lot of bad guys out here.
And there's still troops actually going through this kind of stadium, this reviewing stand, clearing the area, and occasionally we'll hear shots fired, and we see 2 Iraqis okay, roger that. But there's a lot of celebration going on. You guys are feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we're feeling good. There's not a lot of celebration going on yet, but we're still feeling very good about being here. We still got a lot of work to do. Just want to protect all the guys.
All right, we'll be here. We'll be watching. So, despite the gunfire, they're feeling fairly confident that they're winning, at least in the vicinity of the National Parade Ground and the other key symbolic sites that 2nd Brigade has secured this morning. We've only been here for about, 3.5 hours now, and the resistance is actually not as intense as some of the resistance we've seen in the previous days. Brian?
Okay, let's bring in Allison Camerata. Let me mention that the cameraman there with Greg Kelly taking the same risks is Mal James, doing a fabulous job. Allison, jump in.
Thanks, Brian. Greg, we've been watching video of your location, and we've seen 2 guys, I guess Iraqi soldiers, maybe civilians, on the ground, handcuffed. What's the situation with them?
These guys, it's not unusual. When we come into the city, it happened the other day. Several EPWs were taken. It's unclear what their role is, whether they are security guards, whether they are military. We don't have any Arabic translators with us. They apparently came out with their hands up, and they are now tied up, and actually they've been taken into, it looks like taken into a vehicle. I don't know what's going to happen to them soon, but things are happening here very rapidly, and they may be freed earlier than you might think. Allison?
Greg, we watched with the incredible pictures that you brought us earlier from the presidential palace, and you had gone inside the presidential palace, and it must have been surreal to finally be inside one of Saddam Hussein's homes. Will you give us a description again of what you saw in there?
Yes, it was bizarre. We went in there rather cautiously. We were worried about ordnance, unexploded ordnance, perhaps booby traps and that kind of thing. So we proceeded very cautiously. There was a lot of debris. It was very dark at first. This place had been bombed during one of the coalition airstrikes. So a lot of rubble in the main room there. But when you look beyond the rubble, you can see a really ornate palace, very much a palace. Marble floors, elaborate chandeliers. We went into one of the bathrooms. There was running water from gold faucets, that kind of thing. We're in one of the bedrooms. Again, very nicely appointed room, a lot of furnishings, just a very nice place prior to the airstrike. But I think they're looking to clean that place up and possibly make it a base of operations. They are taking a look at that. They may be using that as a command post.
Greg, you're in the downtown of Baghdad. Is it a ghost town now? Are you encountering any Iraqi civilians?
We've seen very few Iraqi civilians. The ones that we have seen were waved off. Tank commanders kind of frantically giving them signals to keep their hands up or keep their hands out of the car, slow down, keep out of our way. They're going out of their way not to engage civilians. We came in here so early, really before the workday started, so we didn't see a lot of commuter traffic. That was the intent, to avoid civilians as much as possible. Right now it's kind of eerie because there's so much dust in the air. We had something of a dust storm, not too severe, but there was a lot of dust blowing around, and there's a lot of smoking vehicles as well. The tanks in the front of the column were engaging vehicles left and right. We saw plenty of burning so-called technical vehicles, those gun trucks that have been kind of plaguing us for weeks now. So the city is kind of eerie because it's quiet. Apart from the fighting, very little activity in the streets except for the occasional M1 tank or Bradley fighting vehicle. Allison?
And tell us again what those explosions and the firing that we're hearing near you, what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've gotten so accustomed to these gunshots that we don't remark them sometimes. But right now, troops are going through the reviewing stand very carefully, clearing it of any kind of potential enemy presence. You can see they're patrolling. Sometimes they'll shoot at unmanned positions, any kind of weapon systems or a built-up bunker type area, and they seem to be doing well. Everyone here feels that this situation is fairly secure. But there is other fighting going on in the city right now. But again, commanders telling us that 464, 164, the tank battalions are winning that fight, and they are here to stay.
Greg, a little earlier we watched that dramatic video of the statue of Saddam on a horse explode. Tell us how that came to pass.
Yeah, it was quite a moment. What they did was there's a statue of Saddam Hussein on the far side of the viewing area, a tank which has a name, actually. The name of the tank is courtesy of the red, white, and blue. Aimed at the statue and took it out. We knew they were going to do that. It was a huge psychological boost for the troops here, and it's obviously symbolic, and a lot of what's happening today is symbolic, taking control of these kind of symbolic sites in Baghdad, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, two palaces, the reviewing stands, things like that. And now that statue is destroyed. I will tell you that troops here are kind of sifting through the debris, making off with maybe the hoof of the horse or Saddam Hussein's pistol. It was Saddam Hussein riding on a horse, but now it's in smithereens, and a lot of troops taking home pieces of that statue with them. Allison?
Greg, stand by for a second. Colonel David Hunt is here with me. He wants to ask you a question.
Hey, Greg, three things. One, great job, you and your cameraman. It's amazing, amazing footage. That's just a super job. Two, why don't you take a walk over and talk to Baghdad Bob and see if he wants to admit that, or bring a tank with you and introduce Baghdad Bob to the great tank guys. Number three, are you going to get out of the Marine Reserves now and join the Army?
Well, okay. I'm still in the Marine Corps, though. As much as the Army seems to want me, I'm going to be a Marine for a while longer. You mentioned Baghdad Bob. Actually, Lieutenant Colonel Rick Schwartz, the CO of 164 Tank Battalion, said he was planning on going over there. They were very curious to find out where he was speaking from. As a matter of fact, commanders here listened to every word of that press conference on cell phones because they want to know what he's saying, if there's any kind of indication of a surrender, and they want to know where he's saying it from because they very much want to talk to this gentleman. And thanks for mentioning Mal James. He is tremendous. Set up our video phone. He's been taking extraordinary risks to get these pictures, and it looks like he did everything he could have been expected to do. It's just unbelievable what he pulled off here.
Greg, it's Brian Wilson in Washington. I was struck by what your commander there said, that as far as he's concerned, they are there to stay. And do you see them now starting to set up the things they need to set up to stay in that position for a while longer?
I'll say this, they're having the conversations that they have when it's time to set something up. They're not setting up a tactical post here. They may. As a matter of fact, I'm probably not supposed to go into that, but there are discussions about the things that have to be talked about, before these permanent operations are set up. Things seem to be in the works.
And Greg, I'm just astonished that you're standing there in the middle of the parade grounds, having been at the palace earlier, and these shots are going off. What are the shots? What are they shooting at?
I can't see what they're shooting at, but they are kind of going through these parade grounds, which are generally under military control, and kind of sanitizing the area, making sure that there's no enemy out there. Now, I can't tell you, because I'm not there, what they're shooting at. We're hearing the rounds, but they have been told to basically secure the reviewing stand. We've got our flak jackets on. We got our helmets on. We feel relatively safe, believe it or not, even with this small arms fire going off. Basically a routine patrol. They might be firing into areas that they can't see, that kind of thing. But we'll talk to these guys when they get back from their mission. But you're right, yeah, after the palace, now we're at the parade ground. We've got a few more stops today. It's just been extraordinary, and these guys very much think they are sending a huge message just by being here. Brian?
The Information Ministry, we are told, and the Foreign Ministry, which are only a couple of blocks from your location, as I understand it, are still said to be firmly in Iraqi control. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands what we're seeing here is a live report from downtown Baghdad, less than a couple of blocks from where Iraqi forces are still located. Greg, do you feel safe there?
Well, there's some curiosity about just what that means, Iraqi forces, and where that information minister is speaking from. Is it just a soldier with a microphone and some cameras, or does he have some backup? These guys have been targeting the defenses of Baghdad, and they have now secured some of these more symbolic locations. But I'm pretty sure that is on our itinerary to take a look at the information ministry. I believe some units are already in that vicinity. A lot of people here want to know what the Iraqi information minister is planning to say next. They were hoping to hear more of a kind of a surrender message, but clearly that's not coming yet.
Greg Kelly, you are standing in the middle of the parade grounds, and in the background a minute ago, I think I saw those huge cross swords that go across the parade grounds. That's a scene that we have seen over the years many, many times as Saddam Hussein stands by and watches the troops go by. That's a huge symbolic, look at there. The United States flag on the back of an armored tank.
United
right
States
there.
flag, Brian. Yeah, and you know what? There was some talk about putting one of these flags up at the palace. Commanders overruled the decision. They don't want to put the American flag over any of the buildings. They say this is still Iraqi territory, and the regime will be overturned, and a new regime will be put in place. But these American flags will not fly on Iraqi buildings. But you can see these guys are still very, very proud and very happy to be here. But there is a lot of work to do.
Yeah, again, the point is not to take over the country, but to liberate the country. To put the American flag over the presidential palace would send the wrong message. Greg Kelly, just give me the rundown of what's going on around you. We want to stay with you as long as we possibly can.
Okay, well, right now we are still here at the VIP grounds of this National Parade Center. Situation fairly secure, even though there is a lot of firing. We heard from Lieutenant Colonel Sports there are still a lot of bad guys in this vicinity. That's friendly artillery, our artillery going out, possibly hitting mortar positions. Try to get more information for you on that. The small arms fire you hear is these troops who are kind of securing the review stand where Saddam Hussein reviews those military formations. They're up there making sure that this whole building is clear of any enemy presence. Two Iraqi militia or possibly Republican Guard have been captured. They are in custody. Not sure what's going to happen to them next. And again, despite the gunfire, I'm looking around and soldiers are kind of standing around. The weapons are still being manned, but there is a feeling of relative security here, even with all the gunfire. Brian?
All right, Allison Camerata is standing by in New York. Jump in here, Allison.
Thanks, Brian. Greg, will you just recap for us how you got into the center of Baghdad today and how much resistance you met, if any?
Sure thing. You know, it was 2 days ago that we made that first run into Baghdad. Heavy resistance, a lot of Republican Guard, a lot of paramilitary forces coming at the convoy. Today, it seemed somewhat lighter, not quite as strong as far as resistance. There were some RPGs, there were some small arms fire, but not as much as we saw the other day. We, instead of making a left turn and going toward the airport, we came up Highway 8 a couple of kilometers 2 days ago and made a left toward the airport. This time, we made a right onto I think Qadisiyah Expressway, a right turn on Qadisiyah, As we proceeded down that road, we took another right, and that was one of Saddam Hussein's main palaces. We believe it's the new palace. There are two main ones in Baghdad. We stopped at the new palace. It seemed to have been abandoned. It was damaged inside, but structurally intact. It was a very ornate palace. Situation there, Bradleys and tanks have surrounded that palace. There's another palace further in the city that is also surrounded. After we were at the palace for about 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour, we came over to the parade grounds. That's where we are now, but there are other elements of the 3rd Infantry Division all over the city securing some of these spots. I'll tell you, again, we have not seen many civilians. We came in so early this morning, we actually started moving out, I think, before 6 o'clock local. Fortunately, we didn't see any civilians, or very few. We saw 1 or 2 cars, but they were mostly parked on the side of the road. The drivers keeping inside, some with their hands up on their head, some with their hands actually on the roof. But not too much civilian activity. Everyone kind of keeping off the streets as we've got here. And now we're going to probably move out shortly, and hopefully we'll be able to come to you live from where we're going. Allison.
And Greg, on your journey today into the center of the city, was your commander surprised that there was not more Republican Guard troops, or was that what he expected?
Some are surprised, some not so surprised. I think there's a little bit of relief that there wasn't more resistance. You know, you come as far as we are into the city, there's always, they said there's the potential for millions of people to storm out of their buildings and come at us. They didn't really think that was going to happen, but there was that possibility. There was that worry. So they are pleased with what they've seen so far. I wouldn't say surprised at the level of resistance, because there were reports that so many people retreated after the fighting 2 days ago. Reports of convoys leaving the city, Republican Guard troops taking off their uniforms, throwing them on the side of the road, and actually kind of abandoning their military responsibility. So not too much surprise about the resistance level that we saw today. Allison?
Greg, I know you're going to be on the move any minute now, and I don't know how much you can disclose to us, but are there more sites you're going to secure today?
Well, I can tell you about what's been secured so far. Here, the National Parade Grounds, also the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, as well as 2 palaces. There is activity near the Al Rashid Hotel and the Ministry of Information. And with that, Allison, I think it's time to go.
Bye.
Okay, Greg, great work, great pictures. Thanks for bringing it all to us. We'll talk to you as soon as we can. Wow. Well, he gave us a lot of information, Colonel Hunt. You know, in just the space of an hour, we saw him travel into the presidential palace in downtown. He went inside. He told us what he saw in there: incredible ornate fixtures and, you know, marble floors and wall coverings. So they secured the presidential palace. Then suddenly, Greg Kelly popped back up on the video phone, and suddenly they were at the parade route, and they blew up that statue of Saddam on horseback. All of this going on while right across the river, the information minister came on, and, you know, he deserves an Academy Award, because with a straight face, he delivered the news that the Americans have been slaughtered, I believe was his word, that there are no tanks in the city proper, and that the Americans, I believe he said, are committing suicide at the city gates. So, I mean, this has been quite a remarkable 2 hours and everything that's developed here. You want to give me your thoughts?
Yeah, it's staggering to me from a military standpoint. I've never in my life been part of that kind of history. I mean, that's what's overwhelming. I mean, these guys have traveled 500, 600 miles, continuous combat for this kind of, and all are elated. You could see the relief on some of these guys. They were giddy almost, with still trying to be soldiers, but talking about taking showers in the palace, talking about going to visit Baghdad Bob across the street. It's amazing to watch at the end. It's a relief on their part. Mm-hmm. What you just saw happen, though, is very fast-moving M1s and Bradleys going to the next spot. My bet is they found out where the information minister is. We're not going to do this anymore. They're not. My bet the next step is, we'll not let this guy do this. We're going to be not going to be taking palaces and have Baghdad Bob saying we're going to push you in the swamp and the Americans are lying. We were surrounded the Rashid Hotel.
Well, we knew where he was.
Right. I think we do. Yeah, and I think we're about to pay a visit. But when they start knocking down symbols like Saddam on his horse huge statue. And taking the palaces and considering using the palace as a command center, we're sending symbol after symbol after symbol to the Iraqi people and to the rest of the world that this coalition is doing exactly what we said we're going to do. It's a remarkable making of history, and we're so very proud of the guys. It's amazingly well done.
And quickly, it's your impression that they're here to stay. They're there to stay now.
Yeah, I've heard him say that. That's amazing. It's kind of like you don't want to give it up. You've got a good spot, don't want to give it up. But again, this is a city as big, almost as big as Los Angeles. So if they're doing that, they must have intelligence that tells us it's safe to do that.
Okay, let's go back down to Washington, D.C. and Brian Wilson.
Allison, I want to just make one point, and that is that when Greg Kelly said he had to leave, just before he had to leave in a very hurried way, he indicated there were other stops along the route today. And if I can, just for a moment, let me turn to Tim Trevan, who is here in studio with me. A lot of things around there they might want to stop by just a block or two away.
Certainly, the Rashid Hotel, it's possibly one site where Sahaf was. The Ministry of Information and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs are all right there in the neighborhood.
Now, we saw the Iraqi information minister, this Baghdad Bob is what he's being nicknamed, speaking from the Al-Sahaf. How far away is that from the location where Greg Kelly was?
Oh, sorry, his name is Al-Sahaf.
I'm sorry.
I think that he was probably speaking from the Rashid Hotel.
He's on the Palestine Hotel in Baghdad.
Oh, the Palestine. He's across the river, which is probably a kilometre or two from that location.
So he's a good distance away.
He's a good distance away and a bridge away, at least.
All right. Mike Emanuel is standing by, I'm told, at the Pentagon. Let's check in with him. Mike, some amazing images tonight from the center of Baghdad. What's the reaction at the Pentagon?
Well, Brian, I can tell you the Pentagon officials at this hour have been glued to their sets like we have, watching the live pictures coming from Greg Kelly and Mal James from the center of Baghdad. They are calling this a show of force, basically a demonstration to the Iraqi people of the will of U.S. forces, U.S. and coalition forces, to end the Saddam Hussein regime. They say this is sending a clear message to the Iraqi people that this regime is finished. By going to symbolic targets like presidential palaces, blowing up the Saddam Hussein statue, and also securing the parade grounds. That sends a very clear message, hitting very symbolic targets. The fact that the U.S. forces are doing this in broad daylight, Pentagon officials says, shows that we are dominant on the battlefield, that it is not necessary for U.S. and coalition forces to go in under the cover of darkness to do this. And so clearly they are trying to send a very clear message to the Iraqi people that they don't have to live in fear of Saddam Hussein much longer, and that the U.S. and the coalition forces are here to stay. Brian?
All right. Thank you very much, Mike Emanuel, reporting from the Pentagon tonight. Just to recap what we've been doing now in the last few hours, we've had some tremendous pictures from our Greg Kelly, who is with the Army's 3rd Infantry Division, as they drove tanks from the airport west of the city directly into the center of the city. The first stop was what you see on the right hand of your screen. That's the Presidential Palace. On the left hand of your screen is the second place he stopped. This is the parade grounds, not far from that location, and not far from really most of the key government buildings in downtown Baghdad. As you heard our Mike Emanuel report, an indication that U.S. forces can pretty much go where they want to go, do what they want to do anytime that they want to do it. And these are pictures that you will see only here on the Fox News channel. Let's go to Allison Camerata in New York City.
Thanks, Brian. We want to go right now live to David Lee Miller. He is standing by at CENTCOM headquarters in Doha, Qatar. David Lee, what are they saying there tonight?
Well, Allison, pretty much like the Pentagon, like we heard from Mike Emanuel, people here at CENTCOM as well are really watching their television sets. The best reports here are coming from the embedded troops, and most in particular from our Greg Kelly and Malcolm James in downtown Baghdad. But CENTCOM here does confirm now that a raid is being conducted into downtown Baghdad. They are always on the conservative side here and will not say that this is officially the start start of the battle for Baghdad, but they do say that they have taken a presidential palace, the Ministry of Information, and that it is too early to characterize, they say, the level of resistance that they are meeting. We are also told that a big battle is presumed to still remain ahead. The British are calling on the few remaining Iraqi fighters in the city of Basra to give themselves up. That's another battle that is simultaneously taking place. The British in Basra have made considerable progress. 3 British fighters have died in that engagement, and we understand too that there is considerable progress in that location as well. One reason perhaps it is not getting as much attention is because we haven't seen as many live pictures coming out of Baghdad's second largest city. But it looks like the 2 largest cities, the capital and Basra at this hour, are teetering and could very well topple in the next few hours, if certainly not the next couple of days. Allison?
And David Lee, I take it you have a CENTCOM briefing about 4 hours from now, and perhaps they'll give us an update on everything?
There usually is a briefing at 7 o'clock. Sometimes 7 o'clock Eastern time. We see that time change. But I should also herald the fact that we do expect in a few minutes to be speaking with a CENTCOM spokesman who is going to provide a little elaboration on a number of the things that we have discussed and that we have watched this morning on television. So we expect that to be coming up probably in the next 15 or 20 minutes or so. CENTCOM here is monitoring events and will be speaking to us very shortly. Allison?
Okay, David Lee, we'll look forward to that update. Thank you. Now we want to go to David Shader. He is with our sister network, Sky News. He is live in Baghdad. Let's listen in.
When are they going to attempt to establish a bridgehead in the east of the city? These are the questions that are swirling around all of our brains and the civilian people watching on at the moment. What on earth is happening? But the information minister came onto the roof, a real show of bravura performance. Very brave man to deny in the teeth of the pictures and the evidence that were being broadcast live from the opposite bank that any of it was happening. But are the troops going to fall back again? Are we going to see those tanks withdrawing, having come so tantalizingly close? This is what the Pentagon must answer.
David, in that thick smoke, we'll let you get your breath back. We'll come back to you in just a few minutes. I want to bring in the chairman of the Iraq National Congress, who joins us now from London. He's Sharif Ali bin Al Hussein. And you've been monitoring these pictures.
Okay, that was David Shader. He was updating his audience on Sky News. We listened in for a moment. Let's go down now to Washington, D.C. and Brian Wilson.
You know, perhaps to get a little perspective on this, it's a good idea to check in with Captain Chuck Nash, U.S. Navy retired, who's in the war room right now, and he can give us a view on the map to kind of explain from a broader perspective what exactly has been happening. One thing we can tell you, what's been happening this morning has been astounding on many different levels. Chuck, give us the chalk talk.
Absolutely, Brian. Let's jump right to the screenwriter because there's been a tremendous amount of action this morning, and it's all good news. Essentially, what happened was we came in from the airport, came up the expressway, and the name of that expressway is the
by coalition aircraft and missiles from this side of the line onto the Iraqi army frontline positions. I was told by one person who was here overnight that it was one hell of a light show. And from where I am, I can't really see anything coming from Mosul. But as I said, Anderson, you can really feel it.
And Ben, I'm sorry if you said this in the beginning of your report, about how far are you from Mosul, or if you can say?
Oh, no, I have no problem telling you. I'm 25 miles to the east of Mosul at a place called Hazar, which has been a fairly static front line for the last 4 days or so. This is as far as the Kurdish troops have been able to go at this point. And this is about as close as you can get to Mosul in northern Iraq if you're on the other side of the line.
And in Mosul, are the oil fields around Mosul? Because I'm trying to figure out exactly what the explosions are that we are looking at. We're looking at some sort of ongoing fire, whether or not those are the result of coalition artillery or coalition aircraft, or perhaps oil wells being lit on fire. It's difficult to tell. Do you have any sense?
From where I am, no, I don't. I don't have access to those pictures you're looking at, but I suspect that I do know where the Jazeera camera is, and that is not anywhere near. The oil fields are on the outside of the city, and to the best of our knowledge, those fields have not been lit or ignited in any way. So, and I suspect it's not coalition artillery, because there is no coalition artillery that has that kind of range in this area. So most likely it is probably B-52s that are dropping those bombs on Mosul. Anderson?
Ben, and we have people who have been monitoring all Arab language broadcasts, and Al Jazeera is reporting that those are the result of a munitions dump being hit. That which would explain the significant size of the explosion which we are seeing. So the lines where you are relatively static in terms of there hasn't been much movement of Iraqi troops. Have they been falling back at all from the positions they've been maintaining?
Basically, this is a position that's 3 miles beyond the Kalak Ridge, which held for about 2 weeks. So the Iraqis did pull back to this position about 5 days ago. The Kurds managed to push them a bit beyond, about a mile beyond, but the Iraqis were able to reoccupy the mile on the other side of the river here. So it has been fairly static. Now, it's worth noting that there is a large military contingent of the Iraqi army in the northern part of the country along a 500-mile front line that separates the Kurds from the Iraqi army. And there are about 120,000 Iraqi soldiers in the north of the country. Now, it's worth also noting, however, that these do not include, to the best of our knowledge, the Republican Guard. And I spoke to a group of Iraqi soldiers who had surrendered to the Kurds yesterday north of Mosul, and they certainly did describe a situation which was not very ideal for the Iraqi troops in this area. Morale is low. People are deserting. People are changing into civilian clothing, trying to mix into the local population, because there does seem to be a feeling among the ordinary conscripts in the Iraqi army in the north that the end is near, so to speak.
Ben, if you can give an overall sense, it's a little bit confusing, the situation in the north, I think. We have heard, of course, of that friendly fire incident, coalition aircraft dropping munitions on Peshmerga fighters, U.S. Special Forces who are traveling with them. Give us a sense of where that happened in relation to where you are and in relation to where Mosul is, because it seems like in some parts of the north, Peshmerga fighters are moving downward, moving further south, and yet in other parts the lines remain static.
Well, almost across the line that separates the Kurds and the Iraqis have been falling back. Now, the friendly fire incident you referred to is to the southeast of where I am. It's about 70 kilometers, which is about 45 miles to the southeast of Mosul. And according to our understanding of that situation is that that was an area where the Kurds had moved ahead. And because the lines are very fluid, sometimes the Kurds move forward. In the evening, they oftentimes move back. So clearly there's the communication between the Kurds and the coalition aircraft is not always ideal. Now, where I am, for instance, I'm looking at a group of American spotters, the men who direct those airstrikes. So this particular segment of the front hopefully will not be a victim of any of these friendly fire incidents. But it is a very fluid front line, and it's worth noting that the Kurds don't have heavy equipment. They don't have tanks. They don't have armored personnel carriers. They have some artillery, but not very long range. So what they do is they take advantage of the vacuums created by withdrawing Iraqi forces. They fill them in, and they hope that the U.S. air power will allow them to maintain their positions. But in the absence of air power, of American air support, they really are, in a sense, not very capable of holding their positions. What we've seen, and certainly in where I am, is that when there is not U.S. aircraft flying overhead, the Iraqis have a tendency to lob artillery shells at the Kurdish positions. So, like I said, in the absence of really constant U.S. air support, the Kurds aren't really capable of holding any ground they take. Anderson?
Ben, this is a morning of fast-moving events. Just want you to hold on 1 second. We've just received a report. The Associated Press is reporting that according to British officers, the body of Chemical Ali has been found. Chemical Ali, of course, Ali Hassan al-Majid, Saddam Hussein's cousin. You're seeing a graphic right there. The man put in charge of southern Iraq during this operation. The man accused of gassing Kurdish villages, therefore nicknamed Chemical Ali. There had been hints that this might be the case, that his body might be identified earlier. We were reporting, British officials were saying they had hit his house in Basra, the southeastern city of Basra, where he was said to have been commanding forces from. It was believed he was in the house at the time. His bodyguard had been identified earlier, as well as a number of other forces who were in the house at the time. But now confirmation coming from British officers, according to the Associated Press, who say that in fact his body has been found. Chemical Ali is dead. Ben Wiedemann now standing by in northern Iraq. And Ben, just so you know, we're also bringing in J. Kelly McCann, CNN security analyst, who is with me here at CNN headquarters in Atlanta. So Ben, it might be some questions coming from me, maybe from Kelly as well. Kelly, as you look at those pictures in northern Iraq, that enormous explosion that, according to Al Jazeera, is a munitions dump, what goes through your mind?
A lot of things. You know, two places on the battle space that has not been really talked about a lot is Kirkuk, of course, which we know is the oil separation plant, and then again the seat of power of the Tikriti clan, Tikrit. There hasn't been a lot of mention there, and we know that there are a significant amount of American troops there, and that sooner or later someone is going to either move northward up into those areas or southward. You know, the 173rd has not yet been in combat, so it's interesting to note that they are striking the ammo dumps and possibly to totally dislocate and make resupply impossible for the forces there.
Ben, do you have any sense of what kind of forces are in Mosul, are in Tikrit, are in Kirkuk at this point? I mean, obviously, you know, we'd heard a lot about the Republican Guard units in Tikrit, you know, the ancestral homeland of Saddam Hussein. Then we heard reports those units had moved south to try to bolster some of the southern Iraqi Republican Guard units. Is there a general sense on the ground where you are now among the Kurdish Peshmerga fighters of how tough the resistance is going to be in these cities?
What we've heard from the Kurds, obviously, is that the Iraqi army continues to man the front lines, and it is fairly experienced troops on the front lines, but they have, in fact, pulled back a lot of their troops and concentrated them in Kirkuk and Mosul. The situation in Tikrit is not as clear as that, because the Kurds, they have intelligence sources on the ground in Kirkuk and Mosul, but in Tikrit they're much thinner. Our understanding, as I said, is that they've concentrated a lot of their forces in those two cities.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Republican Guard,
Ben, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We've just got to put up a new live picture. I just want to explain to the viewers what it is, so just hold that thought for 1 second. You were looking at a live picture of Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. Bombers coming in, landing, presumably after conducting their missions, presumably over somewhere over Iraq. So that is the image that our viewers are seeing. I'm sorry, Ben, to interrupt. Please continue.
Yes, so our understanding is that there are normally 3 divisions of the Republican Guard based in along the northern front. Those divisions have been pulled back for the defense of Tikrit, for the defense of Baghdad. Now, one reason why we can expect, if it comes to it, some fairly harsh fighting around the city of Mosul, for example, is that Mosul has a large Arab Sunni majority. Now, Mosul was one of the 4 provinces during the 1991 uprising following the Gulf War that remained loyal to Saddam Hussein. And it's a very tribal area. Traditionally, they have a lot of solidarity with the Arab Sunni regime in Baghdad. And therefore, there is an expectation that there will be some stiff resistance in that area if it comes to that. In Tikrit, the situation is a little less clear. You do have Kurds I'm referring to Kirkuk, that oil-rich city in the eastern part of northern Iraq. That has a Kurdish population that is sympathetic to the Kurdish militias here in the north. There's a Turkoman population that isn't particularly fond of the regime in Baghdad. And they, in the past, have been something of a thorn in the side of the Iraqi government. There's also a good deal of bitterness in that area because Saddam Hussein has carried out a program called Arabization, which involved the expulsion of Kurds and Turkomans and Assyrians and other minorities from areas like Kirkuk, and their replacement with Arab Sunni, or rather Arab Shiites from the southern part of the country. Now, we've seen a gradual exodus of Arabs from the north of the country in the areas adjacent to the line that separates the Kurdish-ruled areas and those ruled by Saddam Hussein. We've seen a gradual exodus toward the south as these people basically are afraid that when the Kurds take over, there will be reprisals. And I saw that, for instance, yesterday in a large town that was taken by the Kurds north of Mosul. The Arabs are afraid. They're afraid of some reprisals, some serious bloodshed in the event that the Kurds do take over. But until now, we haven't seen that because most of the Arabs have fled.